All right, and here I was saying that we're unprofessional, we're not ready, and the mic isn't working. All right, we're glad you're here. Welcome into Sports Around the Bar. Got the mic figured out. I don't know what happened. I just switched ports, but
This is what happens when we don't have a lot of time to get ready.
yeah, I'm gonna pin this on the time and not on me because it can't be my fault.
No.
Absolutely not.
100% it's not my fault.
Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, guys. We're glad you're here. Again, today, I know you didn't hear it before, we are talking about Mike Daniels, Green Bay defensive tackle being cut due to some money issues from Green Bay or whether them feeling like they could do better in other directions. We're also going to talk about a linebacker Foster coming from the Washington Redskins, also being released, Mason Foster, and Pau Gasol signing with the Portland Trail Blazers. How big of an issue is it, or how big of an addition? We're going to talk about that coming up, as well as the Colts in 2019. We got a lot to get to. Bobby, we appreciate that, man. Not sure what happened there. Again, it was all plugged in, and the mic was telling me we didn't have any power. So we appreciate the heads up.
Ian, Sharif, Josh, thank you guys for joining us. I did want to get into one thing that I would sit there and talked about when the mic was not working. Jake asked me what I was excited to talk about, and one thing I do want to give you guys is all the credit to sticking with us through the growth of Sports Around the Bar. I know some of you have been there from the very beginning since episode 1, and I'm still sorry about that episode, to right now, and you've also joined us maybe within this week.
If you want to see what you're sorry about, click on that video tab, scroll all the way to the bottom, and look at that gold nugget you got down there.
But
it's great.
You guys mean the world to us. I know we say this over and over again, but you guys are literally the gasoline that keeps us going, the oil that keeps us, geared and ready to go. I appreciate you guys immensely.
You nailed it the first time. The oil that keeps us moving, the gasoline that keeps us exploding. You had it. And then I messed it up. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. I cost you
It's all right.
a really good delivery. We are glad you guys are here. And Sharif, already ready to talk about Mike Daniels. If you guys are ready, I guess we're ready. We'll talk about Mike Daniels on his way out from Green Bay. He made a good point, Sharif did, when he said that Green Bay is going to save around $8 million by not bringing a 30-year-old defensive tackle back. But I got to say this guy's been the heart and soul of the defense for years now, for the past couple of years. He's a Pro Bowler. He's a guy that's coming up on the end of his contract. You had the money. Unless you're making a big play, and this was my point. This is the first thing I thought of when I saw this. Unless you're making a play, maybe one of these running backs who are upset right now and want a new contract, why do you need the $8 million at this point in the year? There's not a whole lot of talent out there that you're dropping $8 million on.
Well,
it's an expiring contract, so you don't have to worry about it next year.
No, you're 100% right. And as much as money is a part of this game, the talent that you're losing is, in my opinion, worth way more than $8 million, right? I mean, you said it multiple times, and you might have already said it before, I just don't listen to you, this is probably the best piece of their defense. And for years, and now letting him go is I think it's going to be a significant loss. And I get saving the cap space. That makes complete sense. And that'll be another guy we're talking about in Mason Foster, where the Redskins save $4 million. But how many times can you keep getting rid of main pieces of your defense and talent on your defense and still be irrelevant on that side of the ball?
Unless you're the Ravens on defense or the Patriots all over the board, I'd say not very much. I mean, usually teams, you lose a couple guys and everything that you had goes out the window. So I'm with you there, Drew. I think this is a major subtraction and one that doesn't need to take place. They saw him one day into training camp, and they decided, okay, with the injury, he's not back, he's not going to be the same guy, let's just cut him and save the money. I understand that. So either they're making a play for the Chargers running back, Melvin Gordon, or they're maybe making a play for Zeke Elliott, both of whom are complaining about their contracts and maybe want to trade. Either you're making a play for one of those guys, you're looking to trade for somebody else, or I don't know what you're doing, because there's no reason you need to have the money and not spend it. At this point, I say spend the money. Unless it's the owner saying, I want to make more than that, whatever came out, that $70,000 profit they turned in 2018, which is abysmally low for a billion-dollar franchise. Unless you're trying to make the black line look a little bit better, you're not cutting your best defensive tackle, whether he's 30 and hurt or not.
Especially when you're trying to rejuvenate that side of the defense. I mean, you know what you have on offense with Aaron Rodgers, but that defense has always been the question of this team. And rarely do you ever see the best player on your defense get cut or released or whatever, or get injured, and your defense flourishes from that move. Rarely does that happen. It's usually the opposite.
Now, Bobby does say possibly this is for a position in need around the trade deadline. It says somewhere around weeks 8 or 9. I'll say this, Bobby. You could make this move at the end. I know we're talking about like a $700,000 roster bonus for him being on the roster, but if you'd cut him then, you'd save a lot of money too. I think this is one of those things that I don't know what Green Bay's thinking. I think either it's going to make sense or it's going to be something where they never make a move. They were in talks with the Chargers. They were in talks with the Cowboys to add somebody, or they're in talks with somebody else to make a potential trade. The trade falls through, and then we're just left scratching our heads saying, why did the Packers cut a D tackle that's been the heart and soul of this defensive front for the past few years? It would be good with these new defensive ends. I think this guy is the guy who shores up the middle. Having Mike Daniels is going to help in the run support. Whereas now you have two defensive ends, and I don't know who's going to do it. They feel like they're deep at the position. I don't. I look at it. There's not another name on this roster that I'm like, man, watch out for Green Bay in the interior.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Sharif said it could be that that players backload their contracts for being cut.
Well, it's usually the other way. Usually teams, even though they backload the contract, the guaranteed money's on the front end. And
I was going to say, where a lot of this is. Well, it's usually the teams that backload their contract, and it's the players going for the guaranteed money at the beginning. Because the team will usually make that last couple of years a little bit higher based on if, keeps the player wanting to play his full contract, wanting to do the best he can to get that final year. That's where you see all the players hold out or fight for a bigger contract on guaranteed money more than it is per year for most, not all.
Right, and usually, Sharif, I didn't listen to a single word Drew said, but
okay.
Usually, Sharif, teams will backload these contracts, and then when the guaranteed money comes out, you have that free escape. Mike Daniels isn't much different. He signed a 4-year, I think it was $41 million contract a few years ago. He's in the last year of his deal right now, and I think he had a $10 million cap hit. They're going to save $8 million from cutting him. So they're barely taking any penalty to cut him. They're getting 80% of the money back here because they backloaded this contract and put all the guaranteed money towards the front. So they don't have to worry about paying him $10 million this year. They can kind of spread things out. Going to Josh's comment, he says, Bobby, there's no way you could know what other injuries and such you would need by weeks 8 and 9. I think the point Bobby was making, Josh, is that now they have the money to operate and say, if something happens, we can go acquire somebody. But I don't think you cut a good player like Daniels to make space for something that might happen afterward, especially when I believe you're thin at the position. I know they have some young guys. I haven't seen it out of Green Bay yet. I really haven't. I know they got a bunch of bigger guys on the outside now with Zadarius and Preston Smith coming in. I mean, I think one's 6'4" and the other 6'5", and there's talks that they didn't like Mike Daniels only being 6 foot tall and they want to get bigger as a defense. But you don't cut talent because he doesn't fill out, because he doesn't check the physical boxes, right? You don't cut the guy who's getting the job done because he doesn't look the way you want him to look.
And if I remember correctly, Muhammad Wilkerson, if I could talk, was spent a year there in Green Bay, and now, as far as I know, they have not re-signed him. So, I mean, they are depleted of at least name talent, right? I know Bees is sitting there saying, dude has no name, how much everyone talks about him.
He was the only guy showing up on defense every week.
He's really the only guy that you could talk about on that defense.
And it could be injuries, too. He, for much of his career, he didn't have any problems with injuries. 2 years ago, he missed 2 games. This past year, he missed 6. They could be looking at it and saying the guy's 30. He's having a foot injury. We saw him one day in training camp, which, again, not enough to go by, guys. But they might have said the foot injury's lingering. Why are we going to pay a guy who's going to slow down and isn't going to be looking as sharp? And my answer is, you've already got the money. Yeah. You already signed him up to come to camp. So unless you're pulling off one of these deals, hang on to him. The story changes immensely if they go trade for Melvin Gordon, right?
Right.
If they go add Zeke Elliott, this all changes immensely. We're like, they gave up a D tackle. Yeah, they're going to be a little weak there, but they're getting an amazing weapon to help Aaron Rodgers out, and they're going to be able to push some of these teams in division by running the rock and running with some power. But until something happens like that, I got to say this to me is a mistake. And it might just be one made by a younger coach and GM. The GM's not younger, but I'm saying a younger coach in Matt LaFleur saying, we don't really need Mike Daniels.
No, it's a good possibility. Nestor, we appreciate you being here, man. Unfortunately, again, you've got to wait for your Cowboys to be talked about. We promise, again, we will let you know when we do it, man. You will get us off topic every time Nestor joins our show, which we appreciate it. But, man, we got to talk about the Colts today. Will, we're talking about the Colts, just so you know.
Also, Nestor, if you have a particular question you want to ask us, we don't mind fielding questions. But we can't change the topic because, somebody asked us to change and talk about something else. If you've got something specific you want to talk about the Cowboys, feel free to ask us, man. We get to comments all the time. We're not afraid to go off the beaten path a little bit, but we still got to stay a little structured, right?
Neil says he doesn't think that the Green Bay Packers are going to do anything with that money until next year. They will free up space and get someone next year with that.
I think Neil's right, but it's an expiring contract. He was going to be off your books anyway, so you're literally giving talent up for what's money under the bridge. This could be a black line move because Green Bay, okay, to give you a little bit of background, all these teams are privately held except for Green Bay, which I believe the city owns them, which means they have to report their earnings and everything publicly.
Yeah.
In 2017, they made millions and millions of dollars. In 2018, I guess they upped their spend, and they only made about $70,000. When you think about $1 billion franchise, to make $70,000 in profit, that is like the razor's edge. That means you're not really making any money at all. So this could have been a move to free up a little bit of cap space and free up a little bit of money so that they can make those black lines look a little bit better because they have to report, whereas other teams do not. That could be one of those things. Deo says, oh, shit, it's Colts Day on Sports Around the Bar. I know, I had to have several beers before we started. I had to drown my sorrows. You know, I am a Titans fan. I'm going to stay as fair as I can to the Indianapolis Colts.
And we know that Nathan was going to join us. Does that surprise anybody, being the resident Colts fans in Sports Around the Bar?
And Deo's a Colts fan, too. So
well,
they're ganging up on me already, Drew.
I mean, just another resident Colts fan, I guess, what I meant to say.
We got 11 viewers right now, currently. Andrew Luck's beating the Titans 11 times in a row. 11's not my number. That's all I can say.
The real question is there any Titans fans watching?
My mom,
I want to give cricket sounds right now so bad.
I don't think I have that one. I got some other ones. All right, we'll move forward here. And Mike Daniels.
Yeah.
Final thoughts here before we push on to the linebacker from Washington, whose name is Foster. Mason Foster.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts on this deal? Is there any way, let's say they don't make a big trade, that this makes sense to you at all? No. I'm in the same boat.
I mean, if they got Melvin Gordon for the space and signed him to a long-term contract, okay. But that's if. I mean, you got probably 10 other teams probably calling the Chargers asking about Melvin Gordon. Are you the team that can give up the most?
Final thoughts. Who lands Mike Davis?
The first team that has reached out to to his agency, not the Packers, actually is the Kansas City Chiefs, is what I've heard.
And if I was the Seattle Seahawks and my best D tackle just got suspended and Frank Clark's gone, I would have been on the phone 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes before it happened, I would have been on the phone. Honestly, I think Seattle would be a great landing spot. I think there's a bunch of other teams that could use him. I'd like to see him in Tennessee. I've heard Indianapolis as well. I think both of those teams would really benefit from having another presence on the defensive line like Mike Daniels. Look, it'd be a gamble contract. He's going to be keeping about $2 million coming from Green Bay, so you can probably pay him 4 or 5. Guy's making 6 instead of 10, and he's probably pretty happy at 30 years old and hopefully looking to extend his contract further on. You can probably give him a 1 or 2 year deal. I think on paper, those are the teams. Like there's probably 26 teams that would benefit from having him on their team right now.
I do want to jump into some of these comments real quick, and Ian says one more reason he thinks that Detroit will take the division as a dark horse. He said dark Detroit, but I'm pretty sure that's what he meant. Nathan, I did not see USA Sports predictions on the AFC South. I don't know if Jake has. And Nestor, we're going to be talking about the Cowboys.
2 weeks from
2
today.
Weeks. Yep.
2 weeks from today.
Yep.
If we stay on schedule, if something happens, if we get tied up, let's say, I don't know. We had one with the NBA when everything was going on with the free agents where we didn't talk football, we didn't do a preview. If we have one of those things come up between now and then, it may get pushed by a day or two. Right now, we stay on schedule. That's one thing we do. We stay on schedule, right?
We try.
Exactly. We try as much as we can. Now, Scott says, outside of an injury to Luck this year, outside of injury, Luck needs to ball out this year.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I mean, he's still the driving force of this offense, but there's not too many teams, I think, unless you're Tennessee, that can win a lot of games without a quarterback. So I'm 100% with you, Scott. It's all on Andrew Luck's shoulders, and we'll talk about whether they did enough to kind of shore things up and get him the help he needs to finally make that push deeper into the playoffs with Andrew Luck. Deo already has him 12-4. Nathan's saying 10-6. We're gonna talk about him here. I don't know. Are they that far off, Drew?
No. When I first thought about this team, I thought 11 wins, but after I looked at the schedule, things change. Ken says Green Bay's net income was $38.6 million, down 47 from 2017 of a mark of 72.8
that's
million.
revenue. From what I saw, what I was reading was profit, not revenue.
Okay.
And they were saying they had some major spend to the point where they were making like $70,000 in revenue. That's what I read. I don't know. Could have been wrong. I read it on the internet. That's always true, right, guys?
So Mike,
you're listening to me.
So my question to Ken, my dad, by the way, is: do you think something like that affects a team that has literally, when you talk about cap in the NFL, this is money already spent. And if you don't spend it, you get taxed against it. So, or if you go over, you get taxed as well. So, does their profit coming in yearly make any difference in these contracts of players? I don't know if I can sit there and say that.
I think it does. I mean, the money's got to come from somewhere. Not everybody has that billionaire owner in Jerry Jones. It doesn't matter, right? You just sign the checks.
No, they have a whole city.
I mean, Jerry Jones has said, I will pay $1 billion to win a Super Bowl if I could. So not everybody has that. I also misinterpreted what Ken was trying to say there. He was saying their income was down by 47% from 2017. I haven't looked at why that is. I haven't seen why the income dropped so significantly, but I think it's a big issue. Obviously, they're still showing up to the games in Green Bay. They still have those 50-year waiting lists.
Yeah, jeez.
I'm not 100% sure whether they lost out on some major sponsorship or something else, but that is a huge drop. And when you're talking about a 47% drop in net income, that's huge. That is 100% huge. And sometimes when net income goes down, you cut corners, and that could be what this is.
I get it, but you got to think about the cap, and the NFL has a strong cap. They sit there and say, this is what you're spending on it. It's shared revenue across the board. Yeah, they get a little bit in TV shared revenue. They do get their own, tickets and sessions and all that stuff. But this is money spent. When you buy an NFL team or you own an NFL team, regardless if it's the city of Green Bay that owns it or a billionaire in Jerry Jones, this is money already spent. This is a cap it's like money untouched. When you open up a business, you already know you're going to sit there and spend this much money. You don't make decisions on the money that you have already spent.
I agree. I think you should go into it saying we're going to spend 100% of the cap every year, and that cap is going to rise. But this could be an issue. Not everybody looks at it the same way.
Right. No, I agree.
I mean, look at the Oakland Athletics, right? They don't spend anywhere near what anyone spends in baseball, and they get by with what they can because they don't want to spend. I'm not saying Green Bay's the same way, but there's a 100% chance this could be a move that helps the black line out rather than helps the football team in any... Because we always look at it from the football perspective. This might just be entirely financial, and then you go to the young coach and say, you got to spin it.
Yeah.
You got to spin it, and I think that might have been it too. Going to a couple of these comments here. Deo says he doubts that they make a push for Mike Daniels. I don't know. You look at what they've signed. They brought in Justin Houston, they brought in Devin Funchess, and they brought in Spencer Ware. Grizzled veterans. That's what this team is looking to add. I think they've added enough on the youth side. They got to the playoffs. They didn't like what they saw. I mean, even when they beat Houston, it was 21-7. They scored those quick 21 points, and then the offense kind of like shut down. And we saw the defense kind of hang on for dear life and managed to keep Houston off the board. We also saw Deshaun Watson, who was not sharp at all in that game either. Maybe the moment was too big for him, but I think on paper, What's their GM's name? Pace is the Bears. I can't think what his name is right now. I think the Colts looked at it and said, we need to prepare and we need to bring in some veteran leadership to this group. We already have the young talent, a little bit of veteran leadership. We can get where we want to go. You already have Justin Houston there. I think I would consider bringing on a 30-year-old who's been a Pro Bowler in the past and probably isn't that expensive, even though we got money to spend. I would consider it. Chris Ballard is what I was looking for. Didn't look at the comments. I didn't cheat. I'm sure there's like 12 people saying Chris Ballard, but thank you guys.
Not that I've read so far. No, their additions seems to be in the right path, but one subtraction I think is going to hurt them, and that's Mike Mitchell. That they're now ex-free safety. I think he was huge, and to let him go, you might see a drop off in that secondary. I know they focused it a little bit with like Rock Ya-Sin, and I just don't know if you could sit there and say that covers the loss of Mike Mitchell.
And I will complain about him in a little bit, but before I do that, I want to read Neil's comment here. He says, the Colts need to do more to give Luck some weapons. He needs better receivers. I think this year's been a lot about that. They brought in Paris Campbell in the draft. Right. We both agreed this might be the most dynamic guy. I know everyone says Hollywood Brown out of Oklahoma. Paris Campbell is either a close second or slightly ahead of him. We're talking about speed. We're talking about route running. This guy, I think going in the second round like they got him, was an absolute steal. I think coming out of Ohio State, you're getting one of the best and most dynamic playmakers in this draft. In a draft that was mostly about possession receivers. They almost have two T.Y. Hiltons now. As much as I hate to say it, as a Titans fan. This guy fits that T.Y. Hilton mold where he's fast, he runs routes, and he just has that little wiggle that gets him open and gets him away from people.
And we've already talked about it a little bit, but adding Devin Funchess. Now you're getting a big, tall receiver, someone that's not like the other two, that can run those intermediate routes, the ones that, you don't need the fast guy to run. And not only do you bring him in, if he could stay healthy, I think he could be a huge number 2 to this receiving core. And I agree. I think it was Neil that said that. I agree that they needed to focus on bringing more weapons in, but I think, like you said, they exactly did what you asked them to do.
Outside of Golden Tate, he was a really, really skinny at wide receiver this year. We complained that Chris Ballard didn't spend his money. We talked about it. The Colts have $100 million in cap space, man. Who are they going to bring in free agency? But also, on top of it, I kind of give him a little bit of credit for not going and overspending. They could have given Golden Tate that $15, $17 million a year contract that the Giants came close to, and then this might have hurt the team going forward. I think they're still trying to stay with the conservative building platform where we build through the draft, we get our young guys, we develop our guys, and then we'll pay them from there. I appreciate that. I do. Could they have done more? Yeah, I would like to see C.J. Mosley on this team. Maybe even someone like Le'Veon Bell and say, we can deal with the attitude. We'll find a way to make it work. But I also give him credit for not just going out, throwing money at the problem and saying, oh, well, now we're going to win a Super Bowl. Because we see teams do that all the time. It doesn't work.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to get to more of these comments. Some of you guys had some great comments. Steven sits there and says, oh, you scrolled past it. He said 10 to 12 wins if Luck stays healthy, which will take a miracle. Now, before I go into the rest of your comments, Steven, let's not forget this guy did get questioned last year if he could stay healthy. And not only did he stay healthy, he took his team to the playoffs.
But why did he stay healthy? Because that line played out of its mind.
Absolutely.
And there's a chance, Steve, I'm kind of with you a little bit, saying we saw them play like the best line in football last year. The odds of replicating that, it's really, really tough to do that. Actually, they're young on top of it.
Statistically, they were the best line last year.
Exactly my point. They were the best. But we've seen teams like Dallas go into the year saying they're going to be the best line and fall off. Offensive line is almost a year-to-year thing where it's really, really difficult to stay elite and stay top of the NFL. If they walk it back and we're starting to see Andrew Luck get hurt again, the shoulder is still a concern for me.
Then he sits there and goes off and says if he doesn't stay healthy, he's saying 3 to 5 wins, and goes back to, he says, the norm of the season. I can't sit there and say that's the norm of their season.
Minus the starting quarterback, yeah, but that's not outside the average, right?
But I agree with you. To be honest, I think if Luck goes down, you're looking less than 3 to 5 wins. I think you're 1 to 2 wins.
Also, Deo says, T.Y., Funches, Campbell, Kane, Ebron, Doyle, Mack, Hines, Wilkins. Luck has weapons now and a top 3 offensive line. I say pump the brakes. 2017, the Titans looked like a top 3 offensive line themselves. 2018, much, much different. I'm sure you get to see that firsthand if you're watching Colts games. I'm not saying they're going to go from great to bad, but there's a chance they take that step back and all of a sudden your top 2, top 1, top 3 offensive line turns into top 10, 11, 12, and your quarterback's getting hurt or your quarterback's getting hit a lot more and the running game doesn't have the same effectiveness. Offensive line is really, really tough to carry from year to year.
We'll ask, what about that Titans left tackle getting suspended for 4 games? We kind of decided to leave that a little bit out.
We can talk about it. No, I mean, it's my team. I don't want you to feel like we're not talking about a blemish on my team. I think he did it. I do. And we talked about this before the show. I think he probably tried to skate around the rules a little bit, take those steroids, not report what supplements he was taking to the team because he reported 23 of his 27 supplements he was taking. And then when you pop it, you say, I reported all these supplements. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I think more than likely Taylor Lewan probably tried to edge things out. But the other thing I will say is let's not pretend like everyone in the NFL isn't doing the exact same thing. I think there are a lot of guys that if you tested randomly from week to week would probably pop on the steroid alert. I don't want to believe he did it because, he had the tears in his eyes when he was saying, I didn't do this. He took the lie detector and everything too. I want, the purist in me says, I want to believe him, but the cynic says, I just can't. I think he probably did try to circumnavigate the rules. The Titans will be fine. They have Dennis Kelly, who is a very good he's a starting tackle that we have as our number 3. We got him from trading a terrible wide receiver to the Eagles a few years ago, Dorial Green-Beckham, if you remember that. Titans will be fine. It's a blemish on Lewan, but like I said, I mean, how many times did Brian Cushing get busted for steroids? And he still found his way to come back almost every time. I mean, you can't point fingers. Everybody's trying to get that edge on everybody else, is my only point.
Shree says, with the Colts offensive line and with all that money that they have not spent yet, could the Colts make a move on a wide receiver or running back? I could see the Colts can afford someone like A.J. Green or Zeke or Gordon.
But this was the year to do it, right? When they had all those draft picks, this was the year that you make the move and you bring the veteran in. You got the cap space, you got all the draft picks, you have the capital where you don't have to trade a significant player off of your team.
Okay, but
this was the year to trade for A.J. Green.
Okay, all right, hold on. Let's pump the brakes for a second. Because realistically, all those 3 names that he mentioned, none of them were on the trading block. Even A.J. Green was not on the trading block.
I think you make the right offer for A.J. Green. The state of the Bengals, you get him. Especially in this offseason. Going into the 2019 draft, with all the picks the Colts had, you could have turned that into A.J. Green if you wanted to.
Okay, so
I think this is just Chris Ballard is going as a purist state of mind that we draft. We build through the draft. We don't spend money on guys. We find our guys, and then we pay them.
Well, let me say...
I think that's why he held back a little bit.
Let me say this. Is A.J. Green, and I mean to say this in the best way I possibly can, because the guy's a great talent. He's a great locker room presence. It's someone you want on your team. Is he worth trading for when you've already focused on your wide receiver core?
A.J. Green, yeah. If you can get a transcendent talent, even if it's just for a year.
My question to that is, you fully believe in Mac, even though
I do.
Even though your run offense was 20th in the league,
yes.
You sit there and say that that's not that big of a deal because if I add someone like A.J. Green, we can ignore the run game?
No, I don't think you have to ignore the run game. I think it frees the run game up a little bit. I think when you're stretching the field that much more and you're focusing on defenses, now the defense have to say we have to stop T.Y. Hilton. I want to say Ty. It's T.Y. Hilton. And then you have to stop A.J. Green on top of it. No one's going to be paying attention to Marlon Mack. That's where Marlon Mack rips off 1,300 yards in the ground. I'm not as big on the other guys, Colts fans. I don't think Nyheim Hines is that good of a player. I don't think Jordan Wilkins is that good of a player. They're bodies, but I think Marlon Mack has the ability to be a great scat back for this team, and they're a type of team that wants to make use of that. So,
all right. So Sharif goes out and says A.J. Green and T.Y. Hilton. Come on, like that should be the combo. Well, guess what? Odell Beckham Jr. was available. Antonio Brown was available. Arguably, talent-wise, those guys might be better than A.J. Green.
I think
but they didn't want to go for him. So
Ballard's all about the attitude. Not to jump your question.
I mean, I'm just getting my point across. Is I agree that A.J. Green would be a great asset to literally any team should take A.J. Green. But if they're not going to do it then, why are they doing it now for A.J. Green?
That's what I'm saying. This should have been an off-season move. You had all those draft picks. You're a team on the rise. You're a team that wants to win now. I mean, I think they got a little exposed in the playoffs. And we'll talk about that really quick. I mean, even the Houston game, they didn't look very good. They scored those quick touchdowns where I think the moment was too big for Houston. Houston settled down, and then you didn't score again. And I know Houston only put 1 touchdown on the board, and the defense kind of carried the day, but the offense shut down. Yeah. That was the time to go score 2 or 3 more touchdowns and absolutely put it to bed. Because they scored 3 touchdowns. I don't remember if it was the first quarter. I think they scored the last one in like the second quarter. But that was the time where you just put that game to bed and you score 1 or 2 more times and just totally demoralize the other team. They couldn't do it. They let Houston hang around. It didn't bite them. And then they went and played the Chiefs the week after that, and they looked totally out of pace, right? They looked like they didn't belong there. I mean, as a casual observer, the Chiefs were by far the better team.
I want to jump back to some of these comments because I don't want to ignore them. It's going to throw us out of topic again. Neil says, Funchess sucks. He is a 3rd or 4th option at this stage in his career at best. I don't know why he's being perceived as a beast.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I'm the one that said it's a great ad, so I want to sit there and defend myself. Again, what I said is when you add Paris Campbell in there and you have T.Y. tearing the top off of the defense, you need those underneath, those mid to mediocre routes. And I know you have Ebron, I know you have Doyle, but first off, let's compare those 2 guys. Doyle can't stay healthy. Ebron had 1 good year. We've seen a lot of 1 good year players and then fall off for the rest of their career. You need a guy that can also be part of that thing. And one of the biggest issues was they didn't have an option outside of T.Y. Hilton. Devin Funchess, if healthy, because he did get injured last year, but he was healthy prior to that to all his career, is a huge asset to this offense. Do I think he's a beast? No, I think he'll probably be either 3rd or 4th in receptions in this team, and probably 4th.
Right.
But when he does catch the ball and when he is that valuable option, he's huge to this offense.
He's the 3rd and 6th guy. He's the guy you look to when you need that tough catch because he's a big, tall receiver, and we've seen Andrew Luck likes throwing to big, tall, wide receivers. We call them tight ends, but it's the same thing. Andrew Luck likes throwing to his towers as opposed to throwing to the shorter guys. Even though T.Y. Hilton has absolutely feasted with Andrew Luck, on paper, I think the more size you can bring to this roster, the more comfortable your quarterback's going to be. And when you got a quarterback like Andrew Luck, you make this guy comfortable, and all of a sudden you're a playoff team, regardless of what everything else looks like.
And Dale makes a great point to bring us back to the conversation we were talking about before, Deo says if Ballard was going to make a move like that, he would have this offseason with Le'Veon Bell.
Well, I think more than anything, the Colts are about culture. And I think it's a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. I think at the end of the day, you still need some talent, but I think the Colts passed on a lot of these free agents because they said, we're not overpaying for guys. We're getting them at our value, right? C.J. Mosley, i.e., because they could have used him playing next to Darius Leonard. That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about your run defense being legit at that point.
Right.
And I think they passed on guys like Le'Veon Bell or trading for Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham because they said, we are not going to sabotage our locker room. We don't care that you're good. We care about if you're on message. I mean, when was the last time you saw T.Y. Hilton come out and say something inflammatory? When was the last time you saw Marlon Mack come out and say something that you're like, man, what is this guy doing? Or Andrew Luck. Yeah. No, it's always about the team message. It's always, we are a good team, and we keep things about the team. We don't try to make it about ourselves. I think that's why they passed on a lot of these guys in free agency, because they either didn't fit the money or they didn't fit the attitude that the Colts want to have. Money or not, they don't care. And that's great. That's the Patriot way, right? Patriots have won a lot of Super Bowls like that. But it's tough passing talent like that, too.
Yeah.
So I hope it works out for him. Kind of. Not really. As a Titans fan.
Steven, I want to get to your comment. He says, Luck, when healthy, in his opinion, is as good as it gets in the NFL for quarterbacks. That's a huge compliment towards Luck. He has made this team look like they are better than they really were last season. With the offseason they had, if he stays healthy, this team is going to be really good. But his injuries seem to come often and always.
Well, he was good for a while, and let's not forget Andrew Luck. Sorry,
you're perfect.
Andrew Luck took a beating. I mean, this is the first year in pretty much his entire career he's had an offensive line. He has taken a beating as a starter. Now I know he had the setback with the shoulder.
I'm trying to think. His rookie year, they already lost Jeff Saturday at that point in time.
And before that, we're talking about Curtis Painter, 2-14.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Curtis Painter. Yeah, Curtis Painter sucked, but you weren't playing anything on the offensive line. They weren't blocking anybody. They had Reggie Wayne and they had T.Y. Hilton, but they didn't really have a whole lot of options beyond those guys. They didn't have tight ends. They didn't have a defense like whatsoever. And Andrew Luck's never really had a defense, even last year. Yeah. I'm going to talk about this in a minute when we talk about the Colts. I know we're supposed to talk about Pau Gasol, but I think that might be going by the wayside here, Drew. When I talk about their defense, I still don't believe in this defense 100%. Even though they were the 11th best group, I think when you look at it, I think those numbers are skewed because they beat up on some really bad offenses because they had an easy schedule last year. Let me read some games to you really quick. The Redskins, they held them to 9 points. The Bills, they held them to 5 points. The Titans, I know, bad offense, they held them to 10 points. The Jaguars, 6 points. And then on top of it, the most impressive out of this group, they shut out the Cowboys and held them to 0. When you look at it on paper, they have games like that where they look really, really good. And then they have games when they play the Giants and give up 27. They play the Jets and give up 42. Okay, that's unacceptable, right? If you're a top 10 defense, you don't let the Jets score 42 against you. Bad week or not, you just can't do it. They gave the Texans 37. Not the best offense in the league. No offensive line, no running game. Basically just DeAndre Hopkins. They gave them 37 points. The Bengals scored 34 against them. The Patriots scored 38. This is a tale of two defenses. I think last year they benefited from having an easy schedule and playing some teams that did not have stellar offenses. This year, now that they finished towards the top end of the division, I think that evaporates a little bit.
No, I'm right there with you, and I mean, really the team that I could compare them to, which is not the same, is the Kansas City Chiefs. You obviously all know that I'm a fan of theirs, and I watch their games all the time. They ranked the 31st worst defense, if not the 32nd. I can't remember exactly how that panned out. It wasn't good. Let's just say that. But the only teams that we really gave up tons of points at had high-flying offenses.
Right.
And they were having to put up, 40, 30 points to beat Kansas City. But when we played those teams that weren't that good, we shut them out. So to sit there and say the Colts defense is a great defense, you can't allow teams, like you said, to put up huge points. Right. 42 against the Jets, or with the Jets scoring on them, that can't happen.
No. Texans 37, I think you got to keep that down. Giants 27, with the way they looked last year, that should have been lower. Patriots, Bengals, it was week 1 for the Bengals, so everyone was healthy, but still, that's kind of an issue, I think. I think this team, even though they put up that 11 stat on the defensive side of the ball, to me, I don't think the defense is there yet. I would have liked to see more additions. I know Justin Houston's here now. Maybe the pass rush gets a little bit better if he stays healthy. I still think Indianapolis is lacking on the defensive side of the ball.
I do want to get to Deo's comment back a little bit, and I know this kind of hits you because you're a Marlon Mack fan. He says Marlon almost had 100,000 yards rushing after
8,000 yards, not 100,000.
Oh,
that would be impressive.
Well, 1,000 yards rushing after.
Take him in fantasy.
My bad, guys. After missing 6 games, he is underrated, and he will have a breakout season this year. Before you comment, when you have the number 1 offensive line, and I get that's mostly towards passing, he should have 1,000 yards.
But what did I say
in 10 games?
But what did I say about the Chiefs and Kareem Hunt? When you throw like that, it's a lot easier to run the ball. I think the Indianapolis Colts are the same kind of scenario.
And what have I always said and agreed with you is the only reason Hunt was so valuable, it wasn't just the run game, it was the passing game and his explosiveness
and I do
take
understand.
a 2 to 3 yard route and make it 70, 80 yards into a touchdown.
And I do understand that. But there's a reason Damian Williams' stats didn't look that much different from yards per carry than Kareem Hunt did. Because when you run an offense like these teams do, you're the high-flying passing offense, it's really tough to stop the run. I'm with you, Deo. I think you're 100% right, man. I think when you look at things, I like Marlon Mack as a player. I like the system he's in. And usually when those two come together, that's when you become elite. I like Marlon Mack going forward. As long as this kid can stay healthy, he's the guy I want to see with the ball in his hands. I don't want to see Nyheim Hines. I don't want to see Jordan Wilkins. To me, even when he came back, I think they were sharing a little too much. I get it. He's probably not the goal line back, but on paper, I think he's by far your most talented running back. I want to see more out of him. And to give you a little bit of insight, I drafted him in a dynasty league coming out as a rookie. I was betting on this kid coming in from college. I'm betting on him now. I like the fit in Indianapolis. I think going forward, if he stays healthy and the Colts passing offense takes a little bit step forward like we're thinking it might, adding guys like Funchess and Campbell, watch out for this kid in 2019, whatever this year is.
I want to get to Andrew's comment. He says the Colts will go 8-8 at the bottom of their division. Their division is way too suspect, or their defense is way too suspect as always. He has Jacksonville 11-5, Houston 10-6, Tennessee 9-7, and the lonely Colts sitting at 8-8.
At least my boys can hang out at 9-7 like they always did. I'll give them that.
That's a bold prediction.
I'm with you. That's a bold prediction. I think they're better than that. I think Andrew Luck by himself makes him better than 8 wins. I think if you put any talent on this roster with a quarterback that's in the top 5 like Andrew Luck is, like 6 at worst, right? Like if someone's like Andrew Luck is better and Patrick Mahomes is better and Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady are better, than he's 6th. 7 if you say Ben Roethlisberger. This, by and large, if he stays healthy, this team is going to win more than 8 games. I think that's all I can say. I think
maybe that's what he's counting in.
They're a 9 to 13 win team because they have an elite quarterback, and there's so few teams that can say we have an elite quarterback. I think that's what gives them the edge, even in the AFC. I mean, we don't know Nick. We've seen Nick Foles have a good stretch of games. Have we seen him have 16 good games? Have we seen Marcus Mariota be good? No. Deshaun Watson kind of comes and goes. There's games where we're like, man, this kid's a beast, and then there's games
Deshaun Watson be good.
We have, but we've also seen times where Deshaun Watson comes up short, and that's my point.
Yeah, well, with the worst offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah, is their offensive line that much better? I know they've tried to draft guys, but what happens when those guys suck? I mean, it can happen. It can happen.
I'm just getting a point about Deshaun Watson.
I like Deshaun Watson too, but he's not Andrew Luck.
No,
that's my point. You have the best quarterback in the division by a long shot. Like, it's not close. So when you have that, you're going to win some divisional games, and I think that gets you past 8-8.
Jeremy, I'm glad you could join us, man.
Much as I hate it, gets them past 8-8. No, I love you, Jeremy. I hate that the Colts are winning more than 8 games.
Jeremy's right.
Get out of here.
No, Jeremy, I want you here, man. Don't leave.
All right.
I do want to get Andrew's other comment says, T.Y. Hilton balls out. Funchess is solid, and their tight end group is great. You sit there and you say that, and you give them 8-8, Andrew. Do you think?
Well, he said the defense isn't all that. He did say that.
I give you that. So is the defense with a?
I
guess Andrew, my question is, how do you think Luck is going to do this season? Because every time he's been healthy, he's been one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. So if he has all these weapons as you put it in, I mean, why 8-8 season? Is it the defense?
Hey, well, I think that's it. I think he's saying the defense isn't that good, but they put up gaudy numbers. And as much as I wanted to say they weren't that good, they showed up about half the time. And when they showed up, that's how you pump things up. You get some wins like that.
Yeah.
A couple more comments here. Sharif says he's still on the running backs. He says Nyheim Hines is a third down and long player. I think that's where Marlon Mack's in there. You put the 4 wide receivers out there, or the 3 receivers in the tight end, and you put Mack in the shotgun next to Andrew Luck, and then everybody goes deep. You send all the receivers deep, and you let Marlon Mack kind of squeak out and try to beat a linebacker for the 8 to 12 yards that you need. I think that's where Mack kind of shines as opposed to Hines. I like Hines more than Wilkins. He's the guy you give it to when it's like second and goal, and things got to get ugly, and you need to lean on that offensive line. You don't put Mack in there for that because he can get hurt.
Sharif, thank you for the share. Brian, I'm glad you could join us. One comment, and we got to get to these schedules. Ian says Watson and Winston is the same quarterback to him.
And Sharif also says I have a man crush on Marlon Mack.
He does.
You might be right. Fantasy-wise, I think he's great. I have fantasies about Marlon Mack all the time. What were we talking about? We said Watson and Winston are the same?
I did not say it. Ian said that.
Ian said Watson and Winston are the same. Well, their names are similar, but I think when you look at things...
Starts with a W.
When they're under pressure, who makes better decisions? Deshaun Watson, hands down. And believe me, I would like Deshaun Watson to be a flame out as well. I would like him to be Jameis Winston, where he's throwing all these picks and things aren't succeeding in Houston. And the Titans are winning a lot of these games and moving out of the Super Bowl because we got home field advantage. But that's just not the case. When you look at things, you can't... I just don't see the comparison. I don't. He came up short in the playoffs. But I think that's age. A lot of young quarterbacks come up short in the playoffs. Let's see what happens next year.
Sharif, thank you so much for the share. I don't know if I said that, guys. Please share, like, as you guys are all commenting. It's great. This stuff helps us beat Facebook algorithm. Real quickly, just to let you guys know, we have broken 10,000 followers on our show. Again, why I'm so excited about this show. It means the world to us that you guys are here. But let's just tell you guys right now.
10,000 followers, and you're our favorite.
But how many people get to see our show?
Well, I mean, sometimes like 1,000, if that. Facebook shows it too, and then of that 1,000, maybe 300 or 400 watch, and
shares, comments, and likes push
bails
that
us out. Yes,
huge.
Yes,
so that's why I bring that up,
and we love you for it, guys. You're the reason we do this. Before we move into the schedule, Drew, I think we've done a good job covering everything. The Redskins cut a linebacker. Mason Foster. I always want to call him Ruben, but he's gone too. They've cut a lot of linebackers here. I wonder if their run defense is going to be good. We'll talk about that at a later date because we're going to do the Redskins further on. Pau Gasol signs with the Portland Trailblazers. That's a big move. Getting a former NBA champion on this team. I think that's what they needed. They were a little underprepared for a team like Golden State who'd been there and done that. But now it's time to talk Colts because that's what everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah, we got way too... one thing about Mason Foster and the reason why that cut is so huge is the fact that Reuben Foster is now gone for the season, and that linebacking core is very thin. And Mason was their leading tackler in 2018. To sit here and take a cut like that, a $4 million cap saver, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. Maybe there's someone in the training camp that's, proving to be worth a while. But to me, they just lost probably their best linebacker in a cut.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready to talk Colts.
Let's do it.
Pau Gasol, like him going to Portland. I think that backing up Hassan Whiteside is going to be scary. Look out for them. They're now my sleeper team over the Jazz, even though I like the Jazz. But everyone's everyone's sleeper team is the Jazz, so I'm going to say Portland. And I know they went to the Western Conference Finals. Weird sleeper team, but nobody's talking about Portland winning at all. We'll move forward, though.
Let's do it.
And Jeremy says, especially him, go Colts. Ugh. Ooh. Ugh. You're killing me, Jeremy. I loved you like a brother. All right, we'll move forward.
No, you just told him to get out.
I did. I know. It's because I remembered he was a Colts fan. Brian also says, what if Watson evolves? Houston is scary with that defense. I think that defense is starting to come to a close. Jadeveon Clowney. I know we're trying to keep it about Houston.
No,
we're trying to keep it about Indianapolis.
This is why Ian's my best friend. He says Nuggets is his sleeper team.
Potentially. I doubted him last time. I was with Sharif. I said San Antonio was winning that series. They got it done in 7 games. That's what I like to see. That's growth, Drew. That's growth. You can grow on that. And I like that.
And what was their biggest knock? No experience. And now what they have? Experience.
And maybe they're my third squad. But we'll see. I don't know. We're not talking NBA. We're talking NFL. And going to what Brian was saying about Watson evolving, I get it. You watch the playoff game, or anyone who watched just the playoff game of Deshaun Watson are going to say he's not there yet because he came up short. But if you watch the regular season, the number of hits this guy's taken, the number of weapons who are ever healthy for him, because Will Fuller's always like on his deathbed, and nobody else really makes that much impact. I mean, they've lost Fedorowicz, they've lost all these tight ends, they lost Owen Daniels from the past.
Or Cutie, or
okay, they have QT, but he was hurt. I mean, they have no consistent guys for DeAndre Hopkins.
He also hurt.
Yeah,
my point was.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson is there. Just protect him and give him someone to throw to, and Houston's gonna be scary. Defense, I think, is starting to rot on the vine a little bit. Love J.J. Watt as a human being. Hate him as a player because he always beats up on my team. I'm still upset about him destroying Zach Mettenberger. But I think he's still a good player. But for how long?
That was your future.
Well, I was saying give him another year. I was that guy. I think when you look at things, you have to say this defense is good for now, but for how long? Houston, to me, is an interesting case. I know we're going to talk about him further here. Since we're talking Colts, we'll talk about him now. I think Houston has the quarterback. They just now need everything else. They have a quarterback and a receiver. And maybe a little bit of a defense left for the next year or two. And then Clowney might hold out this year. And J.J. Watt's getting older, and he's had injuries, and yada, yada, yada. And Tyrann Mathieu's gone. So Houston has a lot of questions to ask or to answer. I don't think quarterback's it, Brian. Your turn.
I just want to get to these comments, but it's going to keep us away from getting into the schedule that the Colts have. Chris says everyone is...
What do you got going on after this?
Life? I'm just kidding. Chris has everyone... I don't have a life.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
Chris, they do too.
Everyone's sleeping on the Colts.
Nobody's sleeping on the Colts.
Chris says... He said... Let me rephrase myself.
Go ahead.
Anyone sleeping on the Colts is crazy because they have a great defense. The best, probably not. But this is a Super Bowl team. Not saying this year, but very, very soon. Before you comment, this is what we said since the very beginning Andrew Luck got there. How many times you sit there and say, this is the year, or it's next year, or the year after that? Let's remember exactly what Andrew Luck did. They were the worst team in the league, got the number one pick. He came in, almost won the division, right? Or he did win the division.
They went to the playoffs, yeah.
I don't think he won the division. Did he win the division?
No, I don't
that
think
year?
so. I think it was
so he didn't win the division. The next year after that, they won the division. Next year, they won a playoff game against my Kansas City Chiefs. And then Andrew Luck got hurt. And it declined. So,
but then he came back.
All those years.
Let's finish the story real quick. I don't want to interrupt your point. But then he came back, and he looks like he never left.
Right.
I know he took 2 years off, guys. But he looks like he never left.
No. And I don't mean to ignore the fact that he came back. But now my point was, and now he had one great year. It's back to the same talk that we were saying prior to this, is Andrew Luck is one year away from a Super Bowl. When is it that year? That's my point. When is it that year that Andrew Luck and the Colts win a Super Bowl? Because we've heard this, if you guys remember, that it's just 1 year away until the Colts win a Super Bowl with Andrew Luck.
Yeah, no, you're right in that sense, but I'm also with Chris here saying he's never had a defense, and now all of a sudden the defense looks legit. He's never had an offensive line, now the offensive line looks legit. I want to see it in 2019. That's my only point, because defense and offensive line is one of those categories, unless you're the Ravens, it's really, really tough to be good at these things for multiple years, Chris. That's the only thing I can say. I think the defense kind of overperformed. I don't think any one of these guys, maybe Darius Leonard's as good as we saw before. Maybe Justin Houston rebounds a little bit. But I don't look at anyone else, maybe Hooker on this defense. Beyond that, I don't really see a lot of these guys in this defense. I'm like, oh, look out for him. He's making a big impact this year. I think this defense played well as a unit, but I also think they beat up on some bad teams. I talked about this before in the show if you want to go back and watch it. They beat up on some bad teams that kind of bumped those ratings up. And then they got blown out by some teams that, number one, they shouldn't have. And number two, the guys that they should be matching up with, Patriots, Kansas City, they couldn't hold a candle to them. They got absolutely rocked. I think the defense, even though they finished 11th, they're probably somewhere around 20 for me. And I know it sounds crazy to say, but if you're not playing the Redskins, the Bills, the Titans twice, the Jaguars twice, and then shutting out the Cowboys, I don't know that you finish as the 11th defense. I think it does kind of play a bit of an impact on this defense, too.
Cody says this could be the weakest division in the AFC. Colts best offense, second best defense. In the division, I'm assuming.
In the division. Second best defense behind Jacksonville? No. You're at least third. The Titans are better than them. Jacksonville's better than them.
They might even be the fourth if you really sit there and think about what the Texans could put
That's my point. Houston has a better front seven. I think they have a really weak secondary. I think it's all in how you define it. Because Houston, I think, can have some good impact plays in the front. I think they can have some good plays in the back. They're much more balanced, even though nobody's great. But I think Houston can dominate up front. I want to see what the secondary looks like, but I think Houston can dominate up front. You're right. They could be third. They could be fourth on defense. As for offense, yeah, they're still the front runners. Titans aren't holding the candle to them. We know Jacksonville isn't. And Houston, it's week to week with DeAndre Hopkins, whether he can just go out and dominate that much that he's going to be the best guy on the field, or best guy in the division and keep this team up there. But I'll give you that. They are the best offense. They're third or fourth on defense, though. Yeah. All right. Also, Sharif says, I think he was talking about the Nuggets, saying they were number two seed. They're not a sleeper. They are a sleeper. Who's saying the Nuggets are winning the championship this year? I said the same thing about Portland before the show. Just because they were a high seed last year, everyone's talking about the Lakers, the Clippers, the Golden State Warriors, the Milwaukee Bucks. You're a sleeper if nobody's talking about you. I think even right now, Houston Rockets are a sleeper with Russell Westbrook and James Harden because nobody's like, Rockets got it, right? I've never seen anyone come out and say the Nuggets, the Rockets, or the Trailblazers are going to win the NBA championship yet.
Bo, I'm glad you could join us. He says, go Browns. Man, I hope they can turn it around this year. I hope they can get a winning season. I hope we see them in the playoffs. I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I'm glad you could join us.
I got a bunch of family up there in Cleveland. Hoping you're right, man.
Deo says you're all about to be really surprised, and he's talking about the Colts. That being said, Deo, do you see the Colts being the number one seed in the AFC? I mean, is that what you're talking about, a surprise, or you're just talking about a run to the Super Bowl? I'm interested in why you think we're going to be surprised.
Also, I didn't hear it last time. Going back to Cody's comment saying that this is going to be the weakest division in the AFC. Have you seen the East? Yeah, they got the Patriots, but everyone else, Bills, Jets, Dolphins, you're going to say they're worse than the AFC South? I think this might be the toughest division. I mean, you have the Chargers and the Chiefs out west. That's tough, but then you got the Broncos and the Raiders that aren't going to be that good. The North, you could argue, is the toughest division, but we're not sure what the Browns are going to look like. We're not sure about Lamar Jackson. We're not sure what the Steelers are going to look like. They're kind of question marks. I think this is like the safest pick to be the strongest division in the AFC.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I just want to clear up Steven's comment. He says, you hear first, a title is coming to Denver. That's the Denver Nuggets, not the Broncos.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Well, you got one with Denver, right? Not too long ago. What, 15? 16?
No, not the Broncos.
No, I know.
Nuggets.
I know. I'm saying, like, you should be good for another 50 years,
you
right?
You won a championship in some sport, is what you're saying.
Yeah, at least you got one. Nashville can't win anything. I almost swore, but I didn't. See, I'm containing myself. Get better. We'll move forward. Schedule time.
We got to do it.
We have to do it eventually, guys. We're going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts and their schedule coming up. Things are ugly to start on the road, out there on the West Coast, crossing the country to go play the Chargers in Week 1, Drew. We have it as a loss. We think it's too much playing a team that's just about as ready to win a Super Bowl as the Colts are, if not more so, in Week 1 when they're 100% healthy or close to it. This is a tough game to start with. It's not really fair to Colts fans, but as Titans fans, I say deal with it.
No, and let's pump the brakes here real quick, because when we chose Week 1, we were talking about the Chargers. Melvin Gordon was talking about sitting out. This was not talked about yet. We assume he's playing. If that is a scenario and he is sitting out, we might sit there and question a little bit of what this game is going to be, the outcome of it. But we got to stick to what we said, and we believe with Melvin Gordon that this Chargers team will beat the Colts and probably won't struggle doing it.
I got to challenge something in the comments. Because it's going to hurt my soul. Bobby says the AFC South is like 3 of the bottom 8 teams in the AFC. But let me say this. 3 of those teams won 9 or more games last year. You had the Titans winning 9-7, losing out in Week 17, missing the playoffs. You had both Indianapolis and Houston winning 10 games, making it to the playoffs. You can't tell me these are bottom 8 teams. Jacksonville fell apart 2 years ago. They were in the AFC Championship. These are teams that are good on paper at the very least. I mean, it's not the AFC East. Look at it, Bobby. You're going to tell me that the Bills are going to bounce back and the Dolphins are going to be good and the Jets are all going to be good all at the same time. Maybe one of those teams steps forward.
I get that.
I know the Patriots are good, but
I get you don't see double wins on this team or on this division all the time. But that's because these defenses are tough
and they've been bad. Let's not pretend like they've always been the best division in football. No, they've been bad. But now all of a sudden,
but
all
one
of these
thing
teams,
this division has always seemed to be able to do, maybe minus the Colts, This is a tough defensive division.
Absolutely. And they rotate. It's one of those things that there's always seems to be a good team coming out of this division. They may not be the best division in the AFC, but they're probably second right now. I don't think we're going to see a surprise of the Broncos or the Raiders. I think that division's going to be weaker, despite the Chargers and Chiefs being good. And I don't think the East is going to be particularly great either. You're not going to have two of those teams step forward, I don't think. Maybe. I'll probably wind up eating these words, but I don't think the Bills and Jets step forward.
We're gonna keep going forward on week 1. Jeremy says this is a win for the Colts. Ian says this is a loss for the Colts, and Brian is also on it with a loss for the Colts. So week 2, they're on the road again. They find themselves here in Nashville going against your Titans. What do you see the outcome being?
Bobby, my bad. I didn't mean to. He said Patriots division was he was trying to talk about. Yes, I agree with you there. You got me. I'm with you on that.
Hey, we're talking about your team.
I thought he was
now.
making fun of my team, Drew.
Now we are talking about your team.
Well, we gave them double wins against the Titans despite my protests. I mean, they beat them 11 times straight. Until we see any different, we have to give them wins, right? Road, home, doesn't matter. The Titans can't beat them. I'm kind of with you on this. I don't think Marcus beats Andrew Luck. I think Marcus Mariota, if you look at that poll they had that The Athletic did of quarterbacks, there's a reason they had this guy down towards the bottom. They have him at like 26. There's a reason they have Marcus that low is because he just can't seem to get the job done. And when in the NFL, eventually you're going to match up with good quarterbacks. You're going to need to have a little bit of quarterback play if you're going to beat them. Doesn't matter how good the defense is. You don't keep Andrew Luck off the board all game long.
Ian is saying this is actually a win for the Titans, and
For
Brian
the love
is
of God, please.
and Brian's saying this is a win for the Colts. It doesn't get any easier. In week 3, they finally get to go home, but they're bringing in the Atlanta Falcons. As much as we all watch the NFL, everyone has to say this team is going to be better than what it was last year. Everyone's getting healthy. What do you see this outcome being in week 3 in Indianapolis?
Well, I give Indianapolis the edge at quarterback by a nudge. I think I think Matt Ryan is a good quarterback, maybe even a great quarterback, but he's not elite like Andrew Luck is. But that doesn't matter when the rest of the team is better in Atlanta. I know the offensive line has some questions, but they've done a good job rebuilding that. They brought in 2 rookies in the first round that presumably are going to play better. And I'm not going to lie to you, Colts fans. I don't really see this defensive front being that big of a threat. Maybe Justin Houston plays enough snaps where he can be the difference here, but if you're not getting after Matt Ryan with all those weapons, let's face it, this secondary is not keeping Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Mohamed Sanu, and Austin Hooper, and DeAndre Freeman, not DeAndre, starts with a D, Freeman. Devontae Freeman. That's what I was looking for.
Like, well,
you're not keeping all of those guys off the board. You're just not doing it. I think on paper, I got to go Falcons here. Defensively, I think they're stronger. I think these teams are built very much the same. I think the only edge I can give the Colts right now is quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think their defense are almost mirror images of each other in a sense of where they are and where their best position is played at. But then you go and put your paper and pen down on the offensive side of the ball. Even though the Colts look like they could be better, the Atlanta Falcons, in my opinion, are still proven better. If that makes sense.
Right.
And we have to give...
Well, they went to a Super Bowl. I know things didn't turn out for them, but I think these
are
two teams built in the same kind of...
No,
it's
they
the same
are.
idea.
They're very mirror images of each other, but we give the edge on the opposite side, not the quarterback, but the weapons the quarterback's throwing to. The Atlanta Falcons get a win. Colts find a loss.
And Cody's saying shootout, and Brian's saying it's a tight pick. Falcons are anywhere from a Super Bowl team to a complete wash.
I agree.
That's true, but if they're healthy... And this defense is there, and you got Deion Jones, and you got Neal in that secondary as well. I think the Falcons, you have to give them the edge. Even though I like the Colts, and on paper the Colts were the better defense last year, I just don't see it in 2019 as well.
Stephen will like this. Week 4, they get a bye week. They're going to be playing at home against the Raiders. No, I'm kidding. This offense is going to be significantly better than the Raiders, or at least they're hoping it's going to be. The defense is still suspect to see what they're going to do there. You know, they all surprised us in this draft this last year. Can the Raiders defense hold an offensive back like the Colts, especially at home?
Defensively, no, but maybe Cleveland Farrell can make a little bit of an impact here. Maybe some of these other, the safety they drafted in the first round can make an impact here. This is a game that I think the Raiders fans will be happy if they're in it, and you're able to put up points against a Colts defense like this. This might be the game where the Raiders drop 30 points against the Colts because they don't show up, and they're not as tough as that 11th ranking kind of would suggest they would be. I think this is a game that if the Raiders fans, you hang in there and you put up points on the offensive side of the ball, you come back and say, we didn't win, but this is a good sign for the franchise going forward.
Ian has it as a win for the Colts as well. Week 5, they go on the road.
Well, let's read it entirely. He says it's a win. Come on, it's the Raiders.
Week 5, they go on the road. They find themselves in Kansas City. A lot of people probably have this as a revenge game. And I could see it being a revenge game. And you got Justin Houston. You got the loss last year in the playoffs. But I honestly want to fully believe, and I know I'm a homer, want to believe this defense is going to be significantly better at disrupting the timing and creating turnovers in the secondary. Guys, prove me wrong. Tell me you think this is going to be a win for the Colts, but as a fan of the Chiefs, this has to be a win for the Chiefs.
If this was coming out of the bye instead of going into it, I'd say they have a chance. More than that, though, the Chiefs kind of embarrassed them in the playoffs. That might be a little bit of fuel to the fire. When I look at it, though, Tyreek Hill's going to be playing in this game. I think the Chiefs are still going to have way too many offensive weapons. It's going to look like it always does with the Chiefs. They're going to score a bunch of points early. They're going to coast a little bit. Indianapolis will get back in the game. And then maybe they seal the deal with like a rushing touchdown, like early in the fourth quarter, and we're like, okay, the Chiefs got this one. I think the Chiefs win here. It's on the road. It's in Arrowhead. That's gonna be tougher for Colts fans. I still don't think they're there yet. I like Paris Campbell. It's gonna take him time to grow. I like T.Y. Hilton. I like Devin Funchess coming in. Week 5 on the road against a team that's gonna be looking to win a Super Bowl. This has got to be the Chiefs.
Jeremy says it's a win for Colts. Ian says outdoors, Kansas City noise leads to 3 turnovers, and Kansas City wins 30-21.
That's bold. Who's picking the ball off? Fuller? Do we see Fuller rebound for that? Is it Tyrann Mathieu?
Yeah. Breedlin?
They get picks. They get to their credit. The Chiefs generate turnovers, regardless of how bad the defense has been. They take the ball away. Maybe so. I don't see 3 with Andrew Luck. I don't think. Maybe Frank Clark makes that much of a difference here. I don't think they're strong enough on the defensive front.
It's not? What if it's fumbles? What if it's your boy Mac?
I hope not, because guess who's going to be all in on him in fantasy this year, too? Look out for that.
One thing that Chris Jones is really good at is stripping that ball away as he tackles.
But Marlon Mack, not going up the middle. Marlon Mack, I know Colts fans are hoping, is never going to see Chris Jones because the center and guard play is going to be good enough to keep Chris Jones from getting to the outside. I think this is more on, does Andrew Luck turn the ball over? Because I think you're going to have to throw to keep up the Chiefs.
Frank Clark's a better run stopper than...
He is.
Justin Houston and D Ford probably combined.
He's certainly. I don't know.
I've watched it. No, it is.
Maybe. I'll say this though. I think even though the Colts would like to run in this game, you're not going to be able to run up the block when the Chiefs are scoring the way they are. I don't think the defense keeps the Chiefs off the board. In a shootout, I got to go Chiefs. We'll move forward. They get a bye in Week 6, and then after that, they get the Texans at home and the Broncos at home. It's a nice homestand against some defensive teams that, even though the Texans don't have that running back, you almost want to call them a smash-mouth team running with guys like Lamar Miller in the past, Alfred Blue. That's a tough set for me. I wonder how this one's going to shake out.
I got 2 comments we need to get to. Cody says, we have not talked about Luck in his tight ends. He can use them not only to take the top off, but in short yardage ball control. Before you answer that, James has also said the Texans should get rid of Clowney. I want you to answer both those if you can.
Trade Clowney right now if he's holding out and you can't come to an agreement here. If you're that far away on the contract talks, trade him. That's what I would say about Clowney.
I agree.
If not, if you can convince him to play on the franchise tag, keep him. If you can find some way to come to a number that both sides agree on, keep him, because J.J. Watt's not going to be around forever. I love J.J. Watt, but with the injury history, now he's getting closer to 30. Eventually, you're going to need that replacement. It should be the guy that went number 1 overall to play defensive end, right? And even though Clowney disappointed the first couple of years with injury and everything else, he's looking like he deserves to be close to that top-tier pass rusher in the NFL, even though he's better run defender.
I'll go into the tight end thing just because you just did that. And not in Week 7, but in any of these weeks, you are looking at Andrew Luck throwing the ball to his tight ends. It has been historically known, statistically, fantasy-wise, that you grab Andrew Luck tight ends. You do that. I'll be the first one to admit Jack Doyle was my first tight end that I grabbed in fantasy last year. Unfortunately, that did not pan out for me at all. But you do that because historically he likes to throw the ball. Cody, as far as talking about it, we could talk about it every single game. I mean, you could.
That's who Andrew Luck throws to,
because that's who Andrew Luck throws the ball to. But we like to try to look on the other side of the spectrum and to sit there and say, what's the other reason why these games are going to go the way they do? Because I'm going to tell you right now, with those 2 tight ends and they're both healthy, and he throws 40 times, probably 20 of those balls are going to his tight ends.
The other thing, Cody, I could say is they had him in the playoff game. They came up short, and let's not pretend like Kansas City's defense was anything to write home about. They were absolutely atrocious. I know they took the ball away,
Right.
and they were a little bit better in the playoffs than we saw in the regular season. But there was not a single linebacker in that group that took those tight ends out of the game. They took themselves out of the game. That could potentially happen again.
Dad, you misspoke. You meant to say AFC Championship. The Kansas City and the Patriots will be an AFC Championship. Unfortunately, that cannot be a Super Bowl, but that's what he meant.
And that's okay. One thing I will say, it's likely, right? I mean, nobody bets against the Patriots. The Chiefs look like they're the best team in the AFC besides that. I don't want to see it, but there's a good chance it happens. Again. Spoiler on the Chiefs episode coming up later. We'll move forward. We'll talk about the Broncos, and then we'll push on later into the season here. Even though it's in division, and even though this team arguably played, never mind, I'm talking about the Chiefs still. Even though this team played the Chiefs really tough last year, they know how to match up against teams that throw the ball because they play good defense and they run the rock. They want to try to push the physical side of the ball versus whatever you want to call it, technique or skill. They don't necessarily try to compete in the passing game. They just want to dominate you on the ground. Do they have any chance against the Colts?
We're talking about the Texans?
No, we're talking about the Browns.
The Browns? You mean the Broncos?
Broncos.
Okay.
The new Browns.
You have me confused.
Thanks, John Elway. I'm kidding, Broncos fans. I'm sorry.
I don't think so. And I think with the addition of Joe Flacco, I do think your offense gets a step better. But you're talking about 1 or 2 games. And you were, 6-10 last year? Does that get you maybe 500 if you're lucky at all? And that's if your defense stays intact. Von Miller's a year older. Chris Harris is a year older. I can't give it a win to the Broncos. It's not. This is just a game to me. The Broncos play everybody tough, but they play them tougher in Mile High. If this was in Denver, I might sit there and say this is a win for the Broncos, but it's not.
I think they just come up short. I do. I think it's one of those games that finishes 27-23, and we're like, man, the Broncos pushed the Colts to the edge. They made them get down to the fourth quarter, and it came down to a couple of kneel downs or something like that to really end this game. But when I look at it, man, I think they're just short on paper. Yeah, the defense is good, but it's not elite like it was when they won a Super Bowl. The running game is good, but we've seen Phillip Lindsay miss time. We've seen Royce Freeman not quite live up to expectations. The offensive line fail. And kind of like Ian said, it's a win because Flacco is Flacco. We don't know this is Flacco. This could be Drew Lock. And they were just dogging on Drew Lock. Their head coach, Vic Fangio.
Oh, you messed up on a name. Yes.
I know. It's too much. It's too much all the same. Vic Fangio was just saying he's like an ace pitcher that doesn't know how to pitch, which means he's not any good. There's a good chance by week 8 we're going to see the rookie quarterback. And if that's the case, you got Andrew Luck playing against a rookie. I don't care what everything else looks like. I think Andrew Luck will be all right.
Week 9, they go on the road. They find themselves in Pittsburgh against the Steelers team. And this is one of these games where we got caught up on and we couldn't decide who was going to win or lose this game.
Let me hit a couple more comments before we go into that. Sharif says, more Flacco hate. I don't hate Joe Flacco, but Sharif, tell me you wouldn't have loved to have Andrew Luck in that spot when you went on that run with that defense. Even if Flacco plays in this game, does he match up with Andrew Luck with the weapons they have in Denver? The offensive line that has struggled at times in Denver? The receivers that seem to disappear, minus the guy we like, who's 33 years old, and a name I can't think of.
Who are you talking about?
Former Steeler, receiver for the Broncos now. Damn it. I don't know. They have a good receiver. They have like one good guy.
Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Thank you. You can't tell me that Flacco is going to have anywhere near the weapons or anywhere near the support that Andrew Luck is going to have at this point when you look at these teams.
You are the reason our show is going to become a 3-hour show.
I am. I'm going to keep talking about everything
I'm
going to
have a catheter so I can pee this beer out that I'm drinking.
Use the bucket that's at your feet right now.
There is no bucket. This is a floor. This is you have a floor. Don't pee on my floor. No, guys. It's not Flacco hate.
It's too late.
It's not Flacco hate. Sharif, it's not. I don't hate Flacco. I think he got I think it's a bad scenario to sit there and say the reason after the Ravens won that Super Bowl, the reason the Ravens were good is because Flacco signed that big, large contract. Let's not forget, this is not the only quarterback that has a huge contract and teams are still winning. Flacco gets a lot of hate because when in the regular season, when these wins matter, he seems to be average or mediocre or blah.
Subpar.
Right. In the playoffs, he seems to do well. I mean, historically, playoffs, Flacco shows up. Why can't he play like that all season long? I think that's really where he gets so much flack. And that's just how I look at Flacco. I don't dislike him, but Flacco's flack comes from the lack of playing during the regular season.
Brian also says good running game only works with a good defense, so you can burn clock. It's spoken as a Panthers fan. I'm a Titans fan. You're 100% right. You got to have the defense to back up the running game as well. Otherwise, it's all for nothing. Cody says, win in Indy. Broncos has too many mistakes on the road. I'm kind of there with you. Thank you for helping me out with Sanders as well, Cody. And Brian says, Jedi Master Tomlin shuts down Luck. Let's talk about the Steelers game because you don't want this to be a 3-hour episode. Let's talk about the Steelers on the road. Is this a loss, Drew? Because I didn't write it down. Is this a loss?
No, this is a team that we really struggled on deciding if it's a win or a loss.
Ooh.
But the fact that it's in Pittsburgh, we
Read that
see
for
it.
me.
We see
Because
it
Ian's
as a
all
loss.
in.
Ian says a loss. Steelers shut out Indy 21-0. TJ sacks, gets 4 sacks, and Bush gets an interception.
That might be a little on the optimistic side. But I am with you. Right? We're with him? Saying the Steelers win this game? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're with you there.
Are you part of this show?
I don't know. I didn't write all this down. I was setting stuff up. We were running behind. Things were falling apart, and it was my fault. I don't know. The Colts probably win 3 or 4 games this year. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah.
Talking about the Steelers game,
do it.
I'm 100% with you. I think that the Steelers on the road are going to be hungry for a win. Indianapolis has had a tough and grueling schedule playing the Broncos and the Texans, even though it's at home. You're playing tough defenses. They're going to be wearing down that offensive line a little bit. You let guys like T.J. Watt get in the backfield, throw Andrew Luck off the mound. He likes to stand on to throw the ball.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about a different result here. I think this is close. I'm not quite with Ian saying it's 21-0. This, to me, is like 31-30 because the Steelers got a 2-point conversion instead of kicking a field goal or something like that. I think this is really close, but I think I'm going to go Steelers, even at home, winning this game over a team like the Colts that have come off a tough spot.
No, I'm right there with you. We're complete agreement with that. In Week 10, they go back home. They get to face the Dolphins. This is a win. I mean, if it's Josh Rosen, if it's Fitzpatrick, does it really make a difference? Xavier Howard, even though he's paid, can he cover all receiving options Andrew Luck's going to throw the ball to?
Is Xavier Howard that good?
No, yes.
I know you like him, and I like him in spurts. I think he's really good in spurts, but the season's 16 games long.
Yes, is the answer.
And even if he gets 3 interceptions in this one, are they beating the Colts? No, because that
not
offense is
getting 3
terrible.
interceptions in this
No,
one.
he's not. But I'm saying, like, Xavier Howard is good because he puts 2 to 3 interceptions on the board, like 2 to 3 times a season, and then the rest of the time he's like Marcus Peters.
We don't got time to get into this.
We do. Really quick before we move on. Just don't contradict. Just don't argue with me, and we've got time
But you're
for
wrong.
everything.
You're wrong.
Xavier Howard is like Marcus Peters. He will get you interceptions, and then he will get burned a lot too. And this is the game when you're going up against T.Y. Hilton because you're the number 1 corner who just got paid, where you get burned. And then T.Y. Hilton's got 2 touchdowns and a bunch of yards on the board. Paris Campbell's doing well because you don't really have that second answer at cornerback. The Dolphins are outmatched. We both agree with that. Even though Xavier Howard is a good player, and maybe they just avoid him because he's like the best guy at cornerback for this team, he's not shutting down T.Y. Hilton. He's good, but he ain't that good. And if you say he does, you're just disrespecting T.Y. Hilton. And I'm a Titans fan, saying you're disrespecting T.Y. Hilton.
Well, he will cover his side of the field. Okay?
Poorly.
You asked me if he...
Yeah.
You asked me if Xavier Howard is good. Yes, he's good. Arguably, top 5 corners in the league. And I'll tell you why. Because of the defense he plays on. Who has a problem disrupting the quarterback's vision and timing, and he's still turning the ball over. Not only did he turn the ball over, he led the league in turning the ball over. This is
Turnovers are great, but when you give up touchdown catches to go with it, they're not that great. Ask Marcus Peters. You're a Chiefs fan. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's great. You get those plays and you celebrate, and you're like, yes, we took the ball away.
It's only bad when the offense can't convert those turnovers into points. When Marcus Peters was in the Chiefs organization and he was getting burned every now and then, those turnovers were crucial in times that he was doing it. It was allowing my offense to put up another point or 2 or whatever when he could. And as much as it frustrates me that he would jump routes, that's what you sometimes want in your corners. And when the other corners like Steven Nelson, who is another Chiefs corner now, ex-corner. He's just a guy that sits there and he plays, and you don't ever see anything come out of him except he plays 16 games.
You know what the
So
best case
I'd
scenario?
rather have a backfield of Xavier Howard and Marcus Peters when he was good than a backfield of
You're saying that
Steven Nelson.
when you have a safety like Eric Berry, and they do have safeties. I'm not discrediting the Dolphin safeties at all, but when you have that elite level safety who can come in and make up for those mistakes, things work out. But when you're giving up tons and tons of touchdowns because you're not making up for it, that is an absolute issue. I don't think Xavier Howard is the best player in the world. I think he's a good player. I think the Dolphins had to pay him. But you can't tell me that Xavier Howard's a top 5 corner. I just don't believe it. We don't have time for that. We'll just
I thought
disagree.
you said it did.
Well, I'm fine. Like I said, I got nothing going on here. I'm a loser. I'm just spending time with you guys.
I'm running out of beer and I gotta pee. So
Yeah, well, we'll move on then. A couple quick comments before we move on. Brian says, who wouldn't want to play in Miami? The NFL is much different than the NBA. He wouldn't try to take a hit in Green Bay during a snow game. I'm with you, but then again, guys also want to win. You don't want to go play for an organization like the Miami Dolphins.
I also don't want to sit in the stands in Green Bay for 3 hours, so let alone take a hit.
Says the Kansas City Chiefs fan. It's like just as bad in the
Half
plains.
our games are warm.
Yeah, and then half of
Ish.
them are like negative 48 with a wind chill of negative 70.
I guess it's because I'm not a Green Bay fan.
I guess not. Also, Brian says turnovers can be 0 or 3 points, but they're exciting momentum shifters. I agree with you. There is a place for that. If you have a good offense, like Drew said before, there is a place for that. The problem is the Dolphins don't have that offense yet to make it worthwhile, and I think that's why, not just that reason, but I think they lose this game to the Colts.
Week 11, they stay in Indianapolis.
Let's
Find themselves.
talk about the AFC South run. You get the Jaguars at
I
home.
was going to. But
Okay,
go
well.
for it, please, by all means.
You're the one who wants to get out of here. You're the one with better things to do. Jaguars at home.
I not
Texans
once
on
said that.
Texans at home, and Titans Jaguars at home, Texans on the road, Titans at home.
Yep.
3 of each of your division rivals back to back to back. Do they get wins in all 3 of them?
No, they don't. I think this division is tough. We're arguably one of the toughest because of these defenses, and then you throw in an offense like the Colts. You have unexpected outcomes in each of these games. You got to give it to the Titans, the Texans, the Jags. They have a very tough defensive team. Their schemes on paper, they look like they're going to be very dominant at times defensively. And then you throw someone in there like the Colts, who their offense, in my opinion, stands above all 3 of those teams. This is a tough division. And
It's a tough set.
And you're going to find yourself losing games. And as a show, we saw the Jags at home on the road against the Texans being losses. And then they win Week 13 at home against the Titans.
Now, Ian's saying win, loss, win, because apparently my Titans are just not allowed beating the Colts ever again. I'm kind of with you there. Even though this one is at home and you get the Titans there, maybe things turn out different, but when you're dominating a team 11 times in a row, why not 13? Why not? 11's already ridiculous, right? Why not 13? As for the Jaguars and the Texans, they also have tough defenses. Maybe you beat the Jags early on because you came off an easy game with the Dolphins. Maybe you don't. Maybe things were a little more difficult in Miami than we would have thought. I think this is just a tough stretch of games, and it doesn't get a lot easier because then they got to go play a stretch of NFC South teams. You get to play the Buccaneers on the road, the Saints on the road, and then the Panthers after that. That's tough sledding, Drew. That's a tough set of 6 games at the end of the season.
This is where Andrew's luck shows itself. Because this is, okay, you got more losses than you want. You're not beating last year so far. You have 6 losses. It's exactly what you did in 2018. The playoffs in the AFC are tough. You want that home field division or game or an advantage if you can get it. So you're going to find yourself against teams that, 1, are really good, and then 2, that are not that good. And these are games you're going to have to win, and you're going to find yourself on the road and in Tampa Bay and in New Orleans. But these should be winnable games if everything stays healthy and Andrew Luck and this offense starts getting chemistry together.
Right, and the Saints are the real test, right? I think everyone will admit that. The Saints are the team that have the defense, the offense that can match up with the Colts. We're still going to say it's a win. We think the Saints maybe take this one a little bit easier than they should. Maybe it's a little bit of fatigue. Maybe it's something that coming towards the end of the season, you're getting a different Drew Brees than you had in weeks 3, 4, 5 when he's hitting his stride. The Bucs shouldn't be a problem with that defense. regardless of them scoring points, I think that Indianapolis is going to be able to win a shootout. And I think the Panthers aren't really built to beat them. Even though they play good defense, they're not really set up to stop the pass. And I think if you've got to beat Andrew Luck, you got to take that pass away first and then say, let's see if Marlon Mack can beat us. I think they're set up to stop the run, and then Andrew Luck is going to go put 3 or 4 receivers on the board, 1 or 2 tight ends out there, and we're going to see a lot of passing on that. The question to me is the Saints. If they get it done here, we're talking about a team that legitimately is going to make an impact in the playoffs.
And I'll tell you why they're going to beat the Saints, and I think Cody will enjoy this. This is when those tight ends, if both healthy, will shine. Because one thing that the Saints don't have, that's a great linebacking core. They struggle with that linebacking core. Even their safeties are kind of iffy. So to have that kind of threat in that middle, big backs, you got to have people that can follow along these guys, and I think this is where Andrew Luck can shine. They beat a team like this where their struggle. I want to just make myself clear. The Saints have a very good defensive line and good corners, but they struggle right in that mid to deep route, right in the middle and into their defense.
Even guys like DeMario Davis, they're run stoppers. They're not there to guard tight ends. They're there to shut the running back down. The Colts aren't really going to try to chew them up on the ground, I don't think. Maybe Marlon Mack gets a few late carries if he's still healthy and kind of draws and stuff that kind of take advantage of the passing game working. I don't see them leaning on that to try to beat the Saints. I think they're going to throw first, throw often, and then you lean on Mack afterward. This is going to be one of the games of the week, though. That's going to be fun to watch.
It is.
Moving forward, we'll talk about Week 17. They got to close things out on the road against Jacksonville. They may need this one to win the division, just like they did last year against the Titans. We don't think Jacksonville's going to have the firepower to keep up with them. Defense, maybe he's quit by now, maybe not. I don't see them matching up with Indianapolis here.
Yeah, I just blanked out on the freaking corner for the Jacksonville. Ramsey showed up to training camp in a armored truck this training camp. Maybe he's leaving in a hearse. Maybe he's decided that he no longer wants to play for the Jags after a disappointing season with the Jags. We have yet to do the Jags, so we don't really know what this season's going to be, but maybe he's leaving in a hearse instead of coming in an armored truck.
Maybe so. That was incredibly poor taste, by the way. Nothing says, I'm a poor sport and I'm not for the team than showing up in an armored truck saying these guys need to pay me going into preseason. This is like the 3rd or 4th time he said something about it now. Not crazy about it. Let me say that. A great player, maybe not a great attitude. Speaking of which, Justin says, just getting on here, but as a Packers fan and as a Wisconsinite, Mike Daniels was a locker room sore. He had serious attitude problems. He said he bets us that he signs with the Bears. For real though, he is definitely still has a few good years left. He just has to find the right defense to mesh with. Maybe the New York Jets. Let me say this, Justin. When you're like the only guy on the defense and you're the only guy showing up to work for years and years on the Packers, it's a little easy to get disgruntled. I think this is a bad move because now all of a sudden you have those edge rushers in Preston and Zadarius Smith. You want to have that shore up in the middle because I don't think your linebackers are particularly good or are going to be able to fill in that much. I think you needed Mike Daniels to make an impact as a Packers team. I think they're going to be weak against the run again. And it's going to be one of those things that if teams want to beat you, you run the ball with power, you run up the gut, and you keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. So I think it's a pretty significant subtraction. I like the Jets as a landing spot, but I think there's other teams with them drafting Quinnen Williams that probably need a D-tackle more.
All right, guys, that finishes up for our schedule of the 2019 season for the Indianapolis Colts. We have them 10-6, the exact same record that they had in 2018. It's not because we don't think this team has gotten worse or better. It's literally because we don't think any of these moves significantly weigh one way or the other.
Nathan also says Kevin Byard, 5 years, $70 million. I can't wait to see it. He deserves it. He's been a great safety for the Titans, but there goes our season because now he's paid and he's not going to play hard. As for the Colts, I think 10-6, even though people want to say that they're going to take that step forward, they're ready to crown them, I haven't seen it yet on the roster. I haven't seen the additions. I think 10-6 with a quarterback like Andrew Luck is about what you're going to do until you put together a better defense or you just become like the best offense in football. I don't think they're quite there yet with Marlon Mack as much as I like him. I don't think they quite have the receivers yet. Add another piece or two that turns into a star, and we'll be talking about the Colts being a 12 to 13 to 14 win team.
Yes, Kevin Byard did get paid.
Bummer. I mean, I'm glad he's sticking around. I just hope he stays hungry. All right. We don't have time for that.
No.
So, for Sports Around the Bar, Drew, I'm going to let you get any final thoughts about Indianapolis out there.
To be honest, my final thought about Indianapolis is I don't want the Chiefs to face them in the playoffs. I think we can beat them in Week 5, but after that, regardless if it's in Kansas City or in Indianapolis, I think this team might have our number late in the season.
My final thoughts is we kind of said that last year. And then the Chiefs seemed like the team that surprisingly came out of the gates firing and seemed like they're ready. I know that was Andy Reid's kind of criticism as he doesn't get guys hyped up for these big moments. The Chiefs looked like they were ready for business. The Colts did not. I want to see if the Colts can kind of get ready for these bigger moments and kind of grow from that last year. I don't hope, but I know Colts fans are hoping that this is the springboard. Last year was the springboard that pushed this team towards the top end of the AFC this year.
Nestor, we're going to be talking about the Cowboys 2 weeks from this day, man. I promise you we're going to talk them. You must have missed it. We said it before. Dude, we will tag you in it so you know that we're going live talking about the Cowboys.
It's also better to wait till the end of the season so that we see a little bit more what happens with Zeke. Because if he holds out, if he gets traded, or if he signs a new contract, it changes everything for the Dallas Cowboys. So waiting is a good thing, my friend. I know we have the football season coming up, guys. I know we're getting dangerously close to football being back with that Hall of Fame game. I'm as hungry for it as you are. We can't wait to see you then. Drew's got some special thanks.
Guys, thank you again for all your likes, comments, and shares. It means the world to us. We had tons of comments. It was overwhelming. It's a beautiful thing. But real quickly, Bobby, Ian, Sharif, Josh, Bees, Deo, Nestor, Nathan, Will, Neil, Scott, Kenneth, Stephen, Chris, Andrew, Jeremy, Brian, Cody, Knots, Bo, James, and Justin. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Amazing show, guys. I'm glad all the Colts faithful showed up. You can show up for every other episode and just tell me the Colts are better than the Titans. I know it. You know it.
I'll enjoy it.
We've all seen it, but I'm going to deny it forever. It was a fun show, guys. I hope you kind of see where we're coming from with the Colts. If you don't, hey, rose-colored glasses are good too. I've seen a lot of 13-3 talk for the Colts. I don't think they're quite there yet. But beyond all of personal opinions, I think the Colts are still one of those teams that are going to be absolutely dangerous in the AFC. I can't wait to watch them. They're going to be fun to watch. I hope they get enough primetime games where everybody gets to watch them. It's been a fun show. Thank each and every one of you for the comments, the likes, especially the shares, guys. That helps us out. Fight Facebook's algorithm where they don't like to show our stuff to anybody because they hate us.
They told us that.
For Sports Around the Bar, I am Jakey Bartender. This is Drew. Thank you guys again, and we will see you on, what is today, Friday, to talk about another NFL team that I didn't look again. It's on the schedule. I know. We're going to talk more NFL and everything else going on in sports. We hope to see you then. So for Sports Around the Bar, we will see you guys next time.
See ya.